Well, there has been a back and forth going on tonight between a Jacksonville City Councilman and Mayor Curry's chief of staff as they bicker over the ongoing JEA drama we have been talking so much about recently. Now, this all started when Councilman Garrett Dennis filed legislation looking to block JEA's interim CEO, that man right there, Aaron Zahn, from consideration for the permanent position. Now, Mayor Curry's office called it blatant hypocrisy, with the chief of staff saying, quote, "We don't believe politicians should meddle with or dictate to the board the path they take." The council member has voiced the same concern, yet this move is clearly intended to inject politics into this important decision. Dennis responded to that, saying, quote, "As for the mayor's comments through Brian Hughes, he should have taken his own advice, seeing that his friend was chosen." Zahn has made it clear that he wants the permanent job. We, of course, will continue to stay on top of this story.